Coming to you straight from the basement studios, Teacher Ces podcast episode 4. The Teacher Ces podcast explores champagne wishes and caviar dreams on a beer budget via making money online, budget travel, and a budget lifestyle. Hey, it's so great to see you. Here we are together again on episode 4. Today we have a great show in store for you. We're going to learn about Cambly, which is an online teaching platform where you can make money without a degree and they pay weekly. We have a very special guest, Miss Katina, who will be joining us and giving us insight on Cambly. And last but certainly not least, I will give you my travel hacks and other ideas to make your traveling great on a budget. So stick around and join me today on Teacher Ces podcast, episode 4. Alrighty, we're back. Now, excuse me. If you have been listening in, then you know we have been exploring the different online ESL companies. If you haven't been listening in, then you can always go back. In fact, I really suggest that you go back and listen to the previous episodes to get a feel for the online ESL companies that we have explored. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to have a special guest, Miss Katina, who's going to give you her personal insight on the company called Cambly, which is an ESL company that has both children and adults from all around the world. So let me give you a little background about Cambly. Cambly is one of the first companies that has opened the door to the world of English to anyone who wants to learn. They are an online platform based out of one of the few ESL companies online based out of San Francisco, and they have the belief that the best way to improve language skills and allow potential teachers to teach from home is communication, where they talk to people who are good with the English language, specifically native English speakers. So teaching from Cambly gives you the option to use your computer, you can use your webcam, or you can simply use a phone. Also, Cambly is one of the few ESL companies that allows anyone who has the desire to teach online to go and do that. You don't necessarily have to have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or any of those fancy degrees that are hanging up on your wall, probably collecting dust. Or if you're like me, in a closet somewhere, I don't even know where. But anyway, so there's definitely a lot of flexibility. When we're talking with our friend Katina, she's going to get into more details about the Cambly platform and it being one of the few ESL companies that will allow you to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whenever you feel like making some money. And also, not only that, but they pay weekly. Hear that? Weekly. Yeah, getting a weekly check. I don't even get a weekly check at my day job. I get paid by every 2 weeks, but that's neither here or there. So keep it locked. We're going to get right to our special guest, Katina, in a moment, right here on the Teacher Ces podcast. So good evening, everyone. I have Katina here who's representing the ESL company Cambly. So Katina, how are you doing right now?
I am fine. Thank you for having me.
So first and foremost, where are you? Where are you located?
I'm actually located in Houston, originally from Chicago, relocated to Houston about 2 years ago.
Okay. So we've been doing a lot of exploration with ESL online. So my first question to you is, can you tell me about what made you decide to teach ESL online?
I actually was introduced through a friend who's actually a brick and mortar teacher during the day. And I was looking for ways to kind of finance all the multiple things I do. I have an event planning company, as well as I'm into real estate, and I just have a lot going on. And so I needed something that offered flexibility and unique hours and the ability to be able to travel with it. I couldn't really do the fluorescent lights, the 9 to 5. That's just not my personality. So this was perfect. And I kind of stumbled into it through one group, teaching predominantly children. And then I found Cambly. So it's a perfect blend of two worlds.
Okay. So let me ask you, before I get into questions about Cambly, can you tell me how long have you been working with Cambly? How long have you been teaching online?
I started ESL teaching online in December, and I've been with Cambly for about 3 months now.
Okay. Now, when I mention Cambly, I know that that's a popular choice amongst people who don't want to exclusively work with children. Can you share with my people here, what has your experience been with Cambly thus far?
So far, my experience, depending on what time you log in, because they do have 24 hours that you can log in. If you log in mostly during, I'm in Central Time Zone. If you log in during the afternoon, you will get a lot of Middle Eastern clients and a lot of South American clients. So I work with a lot of students that are in Argentina and Brazil and Turkey and Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, a lot of Middle Eastern. They're trying to learn English to come to America. The same for South America. If you log on earlier in the morning, you will get a few children. You can opt out of children, but since I teach children ESL during the morning, I kind of prefer the children.
Okay. So since you're the first person who's mentioned working with adults and children, you mentioned you have a preference with working with children. However, what has your experience been working with adults so far?
With the adults, I think because they've been speaking their native tongue for so long, you have to put in a little more effort and take a little more time with the adult students as far as pronunciation and grammar. I had a client today on Cambly, and he is originally from Argentina, so just trying to get him to pronounce the TH sound, like the and there, was very difficult. So we just practice and we do, I tend to use song because song kind of relaxes people and you can pronounce things correctly when you sing it because you don't have the stress and anxiety of pronouncing it incorrectly. So probably after we sang the word there for about 5 minutes, he was able to pronounce it correctly. But there is a huge difference between teaching adults versus children. I think, again, we're more so set in our ways once we're a little older. And then that the rules still apply when you're older. When you're younger, you kind of go with the flow. You're open to whatever.
Yeah. Now with Cambly, it's my understanding that there's not a set curriculum. So when you are speaking with the different students, what are some of the subjects and the topics that they're asking you to support them with?
Since there's no set curriculum, they do give you the option where you can go into the resource library and you can pick up different topics. For instance, they have topics on American culture. They have topics on how to write a letter. I tend to specialize in business. Excuse me, since I have an MBA, I tend to specialize in business grammar and how to conduct interviews and how to pass your TESOL because they need that extra practice. So usually they start the class with, hello, I'm from whatever country. I need help with an interview that I have coming up. So we practice interview questions. I ask some of the typical questions that you may have with an American company because a lot of them are applying for American companies. And we go through that practice. So I tend to make my own curriculum, even though there's no set curriculum. And you will get clients where it's just a general conversation, more so what I call water cooler talk, where you just, hey, how are you doing? How was your weekend? And they just want to feel comfortable having a general conversation with no agenda, just so you can kind of catch those errors.
So what are the upsells? Like, what are the ups or pros of working with Cambly in your experience thus far?
I think the number one pro is that you get paid weekly.
Yes.
In the ESL community, most companies tend to pay monthly. So the fact that you can get paid weekly to me, is a huge perk. The second perk is the flexibility with hours. Usually with ESL companies, it tends to be peak hours that usually early mornings, anywhere from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m., depending on what time zone you're in. But with Cambly, it's 24 hours a day. So you can log on at 12 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you still have availability. And they also have what they call priority hours, where you sit down Sunday. This is what I do. I sit down Sunday and kind of map out my week and say, I know I can dedicate an hour today or hour on Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. With the priority hours, you're pretty much not necessarily guaranteed, but guaranteed calls. You're paid
Mm-hmm.
per call. So you want to book priority hours because in that way, you're definitely going to have the volume.
Yeah,
That's
you'll be busy during the hours that you book,
yes. Hmm.
guaranteed. Now, on the flip side, what are the downsides or what are the negatives of working with a company like Cambly?
I would say the negative is that you have a lot of trial students, and so sometimes you are their very first introduction to English.
Mm-hmm.
So just like with anything, even with children, as soon as you turn the call on, they may get nervous and hang up. So
Uh,
you may spend about the first 20 minutes of your priority hour dealing with hangups.
oh, wow.
So that can be a little frustrating if you don't have patience for it. You just kind of go with the flow. Okay, they
Mhm.
picked up the phone. They were a little nervous. They didn't know what to say. But they do have a box. They do have a feature, a chat box. If you type in hello, it will translate it to their native tongue. So you don't have to
Okay.
worry about, that. Usually I do that first before I say hello, and then
Mhm.
they're a little more comfortable, and then they will say hello.
Okay, that sounds cool. Now, speaking on the perspective of being a teacher of color, how has your online experience been with Cambly?
I haven't had any problems. The one thing I did get, I noticed when I changed my profile picture, I had makeup on that picture and I got a lot of creeps.
Can you
So,
expound on that? Because I know Cambly has sort of a reputation of
yes.
having creeps.
So
In that. Can you explain to the audience what that means?
So what that means is I saw a huge increase in calls from predominantly males, and the call was not geared towards I need to learn English. It's more so can I recruit you to be wife number 7?
Yeah.
And so, they do have a feature. They do have built, they just released another feature where you can block a call, where you can screen a call. I now have it where if it's a trial student and I'm not
Mhm.
familiar with their background and that they don't have any information on their profile, they cannot see they can't see my camera. They won't have access to my camera. So it
Okay.
kind of protects you in a way. And I don't use my real name because there
Mhm.
have been situations where the student will find you on social media. So that's another thing that I always tell people be mindful of. Go by a middle name, go by your, family nickname or something, because you
Mhm.
don't want them going on Facebook or
Yeah. No
Twitter or wherever
stalkers.
and finding, yeah. Some
That,
people had situations in the
mhm.
past where they were actually being, flashed. I've never
Mhm.
had that. I'm not even here for that. I'll make sure I
Yeah.
shut that down. So, yeah.
Oh, yes. And that's excellent advice that you've given to my people is definitely use a nickname or a middle name on Cambly because you are open to unfortunately being cyber stalked
To the
or, you know,
world. Yes. And you are
yeah,
literally open to the world.
yeah, which is a good and bad thing at the same
Yes.
time.
Yes.
So let me ask you, does Cambly give you the option to sub, but probably not being that it's an open forum, you know?
No, because it's so informal. So the only thing that I consider a sub is like the peak hour, priority hours. They do give you the option for reservations.
Mhm.
Some of my students that I've been working with, that I feel comfortable with, we have a good relationship, and it's, you know, we have a goal at the end. Like one student I'm working with, he's in college and he's moving over to America in about 6 months.
Mhm.
So that's been our goal, is to kind of get him with his entrance exam for English to come to the States. So you can do reservations. So I think the reservations help a lot because in that way you have a set goal, a set time, and you're only dealing with a set amount of students. So it reduced the likelihood of creeps.
Yeah, that's good. Now, let me ask you another question that I've been asking a lot of people dealing with the, Asian-based companies, specifically in China. Have you felt any racism from Cambly so far in your experience?
No, I haven't. I have not. And I've had students of all backgrounds,
Yeah.
every background you can think of. One thing that I did find interesting, just it exposed me to different things I wasn't aware of.
Mhm.
I do get a lot of women that call, but
Mhm.
they're in the Middle East, so they sneak and call because they're not allowed to use certain things and
Mhm.
be involved in just the workforce in general. And so I just found it really interesting that some things that we take for granted in America, that they're literally fighting to have over there. So I do have women that will sneak a call and say, my husband doesn't know I'm calling. He doesn't know that I even speak English. He doesn't know that I'm trying to learn English because I want a better opportunity for me and my kids. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's understandable. Now, let me ask you, do you know, is Cambly an Asian-based company, or do you know where they're based out of?
That is a good question. I do not know where they're based out
Yeah.
of. Let me see if I can find that for
I
you.
actually thought I heard they were based out of this country, the United States. I'm not certain on that. I will do my research before, I
Yeah,
say
I'll have
yay
to
or
find
nay.
out for you. But
Yeah, but I'm
yeah,
not
they
sure.
service everywhere. That's one
Yeah,
thing I
that's
can.
why. Yeah, and that's why I wasn't sure if they were exclusively a Asian-based company, because I thought I heard that they were based out of the United States. But again, I will check my records to make sure before I say that it's a fact. So, we've been talking about Cambly. Let me ask you, do you have any final thoughts or any advice for anyone who's listening and may be interested in signing on for Cambly? Do you know any of the requirements or anything it takes to be a teacher on Cambly?
They usually ask for some type of experience, but it's not required. It does help. One thing with Cambly, if they have too many tutors, then they will kind of freeze the hiring, which is something that a lot of other companies
Mhm.
won't do. So you can apply, say in May, and then they may not respond back to you until maybe July, saying now that we can open up a slot for
Mhm.
you. So it just all depends on what their need is.
Yeah.
Um, your profile does make a difference. So you want a picture that, will attract, in your bio. You want to make
Yeah.
sure your picture is professional and your bio is up to par to get it. But they do pay weekly. It's not as much as other companies.
Hmm.
Um, and again, it's something convenient. I wouldn't say it's something that you could live off of, but it's a nice supplemental income.
Yeah. And added on, and I believe I'm correct. I think Cambly is a company you don't necessarily have to have a college degree. Do you know if that's true or
No,
not? I thought
no,
yeah.
no,
So
you
it's important to know for anyone who's lacking or does not have their
don't.
college degree at this time and still wants to explore the world of ESL, that's definitely your gateway to get started is working with
Yes,
Cambly.
it's really good. And I think it kind of launch you into that because if you apply for other companies, I'm sorry, then you'll be able to list Cambly as experience.
Yeah, they're a great starter or for people on the go or,
Yes.
just somebody working in between different ESL companies. Like if you have some time or like you mentioned, I believe they're a 24-hour platform. So if you can't sleep at 2 a.m.,
Yeah, you can jump on. That's true.
yeah,
Because 2 a.m. here, it's 1 o'clock somewhere else or it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon
yeah.
on the other part of the world. So it makes it super convenient.
That is awesome. So, Katina, I want to thank you so much for joining me here on the Teacher Ces podcast. It's been awesome. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do so?
They can shoot me an email at katinadw@gmail.com.
All right, that sounds awesome. So we're going to pause and we'll be back in a moment. Stick around. Okay, we're back and we're on one of my favorite topics, my favorite segments, the travel section. So today's topic is once again how to fly frugally. Specifically, can you get upgrades? Can you get anything for free? So let me tell you some of my tips on traveling for, well, not necessarily for free, but hacks, upgrades, etc. These have definitely helped me to save my time, money, sanity, etc. My first tip, and I know it's hard for some of us, be nice. I'm serious. Be nice. Yes, I have many family members that have worked in the travel airline industry, and for lack of a better word, there are a lot of assholes out there. Just being real. You want to try to keep your patience, be nice. Now, we're not perfect. I know I've been there too where I have not been the nicest person, but generally I try to be very nice. I'm naturally easygoing, pretty laid back. Being nice doesn't come too difficult for me. So, and that comes in important as a component when I'm traveling, especially when I'm traveling with my significant other. He's very tall, and we usually try to get some type of exit row or something of that nature so he has more leg room, and flexibility is a must. I'm okay with being separated. on the flight. I don't necessarily have to sit with him because I see him all day anyway. And plus, I'm a bit of a loner at times, so I can keep myself occupied. And like I said, I don't want to pay for the seat upgrade. So usually we're about 50-50. Half the time, when they see him, they'll allow for an upgrade, you know, and it works out in that way. So don't pay for upgrades. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Another one, and this is my why haven't you done this yet hack. And if anyone flies frequently, I'm almost certain you do this. But even if you're an infrequent flyer like myself, please join your airline's frequent flyer club. The past few years, like right after my twins were born, I was lucky if I found myself needing air travel at least once a year. Now that my kids are a little older, I found that I can travel a little bit more. So I have joined the frequent flyer club for every single airline I use, whether it's frequently or infrequently. Like I said on a previous episode, I am semi-excited, I don't know why, about taking Frontier, which as I rack my brain, I really feel like I've taken Frontier before. I think I have, but it was years ago before they've had all the nickel and dime things going on. But at any rate, I joined everyone's frequent flyer program, collecting my points. A little hack that you may or may not realize can work is, like I mentioned before, I wasn't really flying frequently the past few years after I had my kids. But when I started flying more frequently in the past 2 years, I called up the airlines and asked them if they can reinstate my frequent flyer points because they basically are null and void after a year to 18 months. And everyone agreed to do so as long as I vowed that I'd be traveling more frequently. And I did. So, don't be shy to call up the airlines and ask them if they can reinstate your points if they've gone stagnant since you haven't used them for a while. I'm fortunate enough that I live near 3 major airports. I definitely have a preference airport that is a little bit closer than the other 2, but that comes in as a huge advantage when it's time to travel. Yes, I have my preference airport, but if I'm going to really save a lot of money, I will go to the other 2 airports that are a little further out. And plus, if I go to another airport, if I feel that it makes my air travel less stressful, I'll do that if I have to go further out, and that means no layovers or what have you. I know, here's another tip I have. When you are pissed, you're always on Yelp and Facebook and tweeting about how angry you are and how terrible it was. I get it. I've been there, done that too. But on the flip side, have you tweeted, Facebook, Yelped about any of your positive experiences as well? Like if something goes your way. I mean, I've definitely done both, and I've had positive results from both. And even when I was angry, about something, it came in my favor. And when I said angry, I wasn't really angry. I just let them know. I'll tell you about an incident that happened. Oh my goodness, I'm aging myself. 12 years ago, when I was a young Teacher Ces and I was running those travel streets. Well, I went to Las Vegas for an event, and a large event, and I could not believe that I had arrived at the airport. First off, the line to get in the airport was the longest line I'd ever seen in my life to get in anyone's airport. And when I got there like with time to spare, literally 4 to 5 hours before my flight was going to leave. All my friends were leaving at the same time, so I'm like, I'll just hang out at the airport. So I get there 4 to 5 hours before my flight. Sat around at the airport 4 to 5 hours. It's Vegas, you can play on the slots or whatever in the airport. Ate, what have you. So I get on my plane, make it back home, get into DC. I'm waiting for my bags and waiting. My bags did not arrive. And I was really like, wow, because I got to the airport early. I'm not playing. It really was like 4 to 5 hours early. So I'm like, how can that be? I'm like mad, So I, of course, go to the customer service. They take care of it. My bags come the next day. So I wrote Southwest a letter, and I even clipped the luggage tag that they put on and included it in the letter. Like, this is evidence. I'm not being funny. Like, I really got there hours ahead of time. what happened? So they wrote, and I wrote to the CEO. So they wrote me back. They gave me vouchers and they explained, and I'm summarizing, this is 12 years ago, but I'll never forget basically what the issue was. They acknowledged that they messed up. They acknowledged I got there in plenty of time. They said it was an event, a very big event. They had Chinese New Year's and the NBA All-Star weekend, the same weekend. They had to, this is their excuse, and this is what they said. I won't say it's an excuse. I believe what they're saying. They had never had to check so many registered firearms, and therefore, I'm not making this up, it put them behind in baggages, and they apologized profusely for, not having my baggage on the plane, and they acknowledged that, yes, I got there in plenty of time, and it was their fault. So again, Southwest, I don't think I've ever said this on air. It's my favorite airline. I know. I've traveled a lot domestically, and I feel like I've been on all the major U.S. domestic airlines, except Hawaii. I've never been on Hawaiian Airlines. And they really are my favorite. I like, what's the other one? Virgin America. But they don't really fly too much. The only places they go from this area, the DC area, is to San Francisco, Los Angeles, I think Vegas. It's like a very nice airplane. I love British Airways. I love telling people about how much I love British Airways because it makes me sound like I'm a world traveler. When, full truth disclosure, I've used British Airways one time, on the one time I've ever been to Europe, when I went to London, which, hey, at least I can say I've been. There are people I realize some of my people have never been, and up until about 8 years ago, I had never been either, but I absolutely, full disclosure, love London. So if you are listening and you're in London, I love your city. I wish I could go back. It is my favorite place I've ever traveled. A little off topic, but yeah. So definitely go and share your positive experiences you've had with these airlines. So if you have a hack that you like to share, I love my people and I love interaction. So you can email me at cestheteacher@gmail.com. Ces, C-E-S, the teacher @gmail.com. And of course, you can reach me on all my social media platforms. I'm out there. You can look at the show notes. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. But full disclosure, once again, I'm not a huge Twitter fan. I just joined it to say I'm on it. I don't really like it very much. I'm not a big tweeter. Anyway, everything Pinterest. I love Pinterest. I feel like an old lady saying that. And I'm not the crafty mom type, but I just love Pinterest. I'm on everywhere except Snapchat. Like I've said before, I just don't really get Snapchat. I feel like I'm a little old for it, what have you. But thank you so much for sticking with me. Please keep listening weekly. Please keep sending in those emails, sending in what you like about the show. And that's it. So as always, I would love if you leave a 5-star review and also subscribe and tell a friend. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.